Hello everybody, this is Raghuraman, Superintendent Additional Director General Office, Bangalore Zonal Unit. Basically this video has been prepared to address the issues with regard to the documentation which is being normally very little followed while doing the audit. The most important areas of the audit are supposed to be the documentation with regard to the present audit setup in the department. It so happens the audit starts with documentation and ends with documentation. The most important area as far as the documentation is concerned is the Assessee master file. Now, there has been a lot of questions which are asked. Who has to create this Assessee master file? What has to be put in this Assessee master file? Who has to actually update the Assessee master file? Who has to maintain the Assessee master file? And what is an Assessee profile? So many questions. Now, these questions are really relevant. I don't say they are not relevant because every single audit needs to complete the updation of the Assessee master file. Now, let us look into these questions and try to answer one by one. Now, what is an Assessee master file? The Assessee master file is basically a collection of data. Now, what sort of data does it contain? It contains balance sheets, profit and loss account, tax audit reports, income tax audit report as well as cost audit report, our own internal audit reports, the SERA audit reports, anything which comes to us with regard to that particular Assessee which is available with the department will all be filed in the Assessee master file. Now, the prime most importance of this particular Assessee master file is bring all the documents together in one place. Many times we see the Assessee master file will be a part or a sub file of the audit file. This has been a continuous complaint which we have seen whenever a quality assurance review is being done. We see people go and verify the audit files with which the master file is also clubbed and kept. Now, this Assessee master file which is available with the audit file do contain all the relevant information with regard to the objections which are raised by the audit group on that particular company. It so happens Assessee master file should be a separate document apart from all these information which is filed in that particular set of files. Now, Assessee master file should contain many simple documents which we normally come across during the course of the audit. The first and foremost of this Assessee master file would be an Assessee profile. Now, what does this Assessee profile contain? The Assessee profile can be split into three different portions. The details of the Assessee profile is given in the annexures to the Central Excise and Service Tax Audit Manuals. They come as Annexure 1 with regard to CE1 as Central Excise and ST1 with regard to Service Tax. Now, what does it contain again? There are three parts in it, as I told you. The first part contains the data which is already available with the department. How these information are nothing but the data which has been filed by the Assessee to the department, like the returns which are filed, the basic returns which are filed monthly or 6 monthly, and the other returns like the ST1 or even the registration details of that particular Assessee. Now, it is a continuous process of updating an Assessee profile. The part 1 basically talks to us with regard to data which are pertaining to working of that particular company, like whether the company has filed in a declaration with regard to 63A or where and all they have registered, like the information with regard to the related party, the associated enterprises. All these things are supposed to be part of the part 1 of the assessee profile. Now let us talk about the part 2. Now part 2 basically depends on the data which is available with the assessee. The most important things are like the contact address, the name, the contact details of the signatory, authorized signatory, the chairman, CEO, or the proprietor or partner of that particular company. Beyond this, details of other registration which the assessee has taken over, like the service tax registration, the VAT registration, the DGFT registration. These registrations are prime most important with regard to the data collection part in the part 2. Along with this, even the bank account details are collected in the part 2 of the assessee profile. Now part 3 of the assessee profile basically depends on the data which is available with regard to the hard copies of all the reports. Now, what are these reports? The first one is your list of records which normally the assessee would have filed with the department. Now, the list of records, it is done both in the central excise regime as well as the service tax regime. Now, beyond this, there are other items like the balance sheet, the profit and loss account, the trial balance. These are the issues which normally should be taken for a period of 3 years preceding to the period of audit. Now, beyond this balance sheet or the trial balance, the tax audit reports, the section 44AB audits, the cost audit reports, the audits which have been conducted by the internal audit groups as well as the SERA audit groups, the reports of the sales tax audit reports. So these reports which are already there with the assessee, which can be easily part with, need be collected. Beyond this, the regular returns which are being filed by the assessee, that has to be collected. Then the minutes of the monitoring committee meeting which is done in the previous audit, that needs to be filed. The working papers which were verified and certified by the audit group and the audit in charge should also be filed along with this particular data. Now, once these informations are complete with regard to the assessee master file, then we can say that assessee master file has been maintained by the commissionerate. Now, always there is a question. Now, who initiates this? Who has to maintain it? Who has to create it? Who has to update it? All these questions as usual. The creation of the assessee master file during the first audit normally happens along with the assessee profile. The assessee profile is normally created with the EDW or the ACES data which is available with the department. So part 1 of the assessee profile is normally created by the planning cell. Now, after this particular portion is over, now part 2 and part 3 data should always be collected from the taxpayer or the assessee. Now, whenever the audit group visits to that particular unit, now this particular data has to be taken up and filed along with the other documents which are already available in the assessee master file. Normally, 5 years data at any given point of time should be available in the assessee master file. The irrelevant portions can always be removed. Updation of the assessee master file normally are with the audit groups. They take the data, collect the data, do their desk review, complete the audit, and then file it in a systematic manner and then hand it over to the planning cell. Now, if a particular unit is not taken up for an audit for a particular year, then in those particular years, the assessee profile need be updated by the planning cell and keep it ready for the use of the audit groups at a later point in time. So, creating an assessee profile on a yearly basis has become the most important thing with the available data by the planning cell. Now, this has been a constant requirement of the desk review portion of the audit. Now, the stages are very clearly demarcated. The audit group needs to have the audit profile and the basic information vis-a-vis the previous data, whatever has been done, that is the audit, the working papers, as well as the minutes of the meeting, so that these things are taken into account when the desk review is done. It is basically to help the desk review in a more effective manner. The Assessee master file should be maintained.